The maintenance tunnels of Station Kepler hummed with the steady rhythm of life support systems, a mechanical heartbeat that Marcus Webb had grown to find comforting. During his 3 years aboard the remote outpost, at 32, he had learned to appreciate solitude, finding peace in the predictable whir of recycling units and the soft blue glow of emergency lighting. Tonight, he crawled through the narrow passage beneath Section C, his tool belt clanking softly against the metal flooring. The atmospheric processor had been acting up again, and Marcus preferred working when the station was quiet, when most of the 300 residents were tucked away in their quarters. Marcus had always been more comfortable with machines than people. Machines were logical, predictable. They broke down for clear reasons and responded to systematic solutions. People were messy, complicated, full of emotions he never quite knew how to navigate. That's why he'd requested assignment to Kepler Station, a posting so remote that social interaction was minimal. As he rounded a corner, Marcus heard something that made him pause, a soft sound, barely audible over the ambient noise, like someone crying, but trying very hard to muffle it. He stopped, listening intently. The sound came again, definitely crying, and definitely coming from somewhere ahead. This section was supposed to be empty at this hour. He moved forward cautiously, his curiosity overriding his natural inclination to avoid other people's problems. The sound led him to a maintenance access panel that opened onto one of the station's smaller observation decks. Through the grating, he could see a small figure huddled against the massive transparistile window that looked out into the star-filled void. Marcus carefully opened the access panel and climbed out. The figure turned a child, he realized, though not human. She had the distinctive silver-blue skin of the Vailter, one of the more common alien species that passed through the station. Her large violet eyes were brimmed with tears, and her small hands clutched what looked like a worn stuffed animal. "Hey," Marcus said softly, not wanting to startle her. "You okay?" The child looked up at him with those enormous eyes, and Marcus felt his heart clench. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old, and she looked utterly lost. "Are you human?" she asked. Marcus nodded, crouching down to her level. "Yeah, I'm human. My name's Marcus. What's yours?" "Zira," she said, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. "I was looking for a human." "Well, you found one," Marcus said gently. "But what are you doing out here by yourself? Where are your parents?" Zira's lower lip trembled. "My mama's sleeping. She's always so tired now. She works and works, but we never have enough credits for good food or a nice place to live." She looked up at him hopefully. "Are you single?" The question caught Marcus completely off guard. What? Are you single?" Zira repeated, as if it were the most natural question in the universe. "Because if you are, you should marry my mama." Marcus blinked, certain he'd misheard. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" "You should marry my mama," Zira said again, more earnestly. "Now, she's really pretty, and she's the best mama in the whole galaxy. She sings to me when I'm scared, and she makes the most delicious Kethera soup, and she knows how to fix anything that's broken." The words tumbled out in a rush. "She cries sometimes when she thinks I'm asleep, but she's still good. You could help her not be so tired all the time." Marcus sat down heavily on the deck, his mind reeling. "Zira, sweetheart, I don't think she's not used up," Zira interrupted, her voice suddenly fierce. "Some of the other people say mean things about her because she doesn't have a mate bond, and she had me anyway. But she's not bad. She's the best mama ever." The pain in the child's voice hit Marcus like a physical blow. He could hear the echoes of cruel words, the weight of judgment that this little girl had been carrying. "I'm sure she is," Marcus said, quietly. "But Zira, marriage isn't something you can just arrange like that. It's complicated." "Why?" Zira asked, tilting her head. "Don't you want to be happy?" The simple question struck him speechless. When was the last time anyone had asked him that? "My mama deserves to be happy," Zira continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. "She gave up everything for me, her family, her home world, her whole life. She says she doesn't regret it, but I know she's lonely." Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. This child was carrying a burden no 7-year-old should have to bear. "Where's your mama now?" He asked gently. Working, Zira said. She cleans the hydroponics bays on the night shift. She says it pays better than the day shift, but I think she just doesn't want people to stare at her. How did you get out of your quarters? Zira looked down at her feet. I waited until Mama left for work. Then I used the emergency override. I had to find a human. Why a human specifically? Because humans are supposed to be kind, she said simply. Mama told me that. She said that even when humans are scared or confused, they usually try to do the right thing. Marcus felt a lump form in his throat. Here was this alien child, holding onto faith in the basic goodness of humanity, while he'd spent years believing that people were better avoided altogether. I'll tell you what, he said finally. How about I walk you back to your quarters? It's not safe for you to be wandering around the station alone at night. Zira's face lit up. And then you'll meet Mama. And then we'll see, Marcus said, which seemed to be enough for her. As they walked through the quiet corridors, Marcus found himself oddly at peace. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about the next repair job. He was simply present, listening to a child's innocent chatter and feeling something warm unfurling in his chest. Looking down at Zira's hopeful face, Marcus felt something shift inside him. Maybe it was time to stop hiding from the world. Maybe it was time to take a chance on something other than solitude. I promise, he said, and meant it. 3 days passed before Marcus gathered the courage to seek out Zira and her mother. He told himself he was being cautious, responsible after all. Approaching a single mother with a child's invitation required delicacy. But the truth was simpler. He was terrified. The hydroponics bay on level 7 was a cathedral of green, filled with the gentle hum of growth chambers and the soft trickle of nutrient solutions. Marcus had timed his visit for the end of the night shift, when the cleaning crew would be finishing their rounds. He found her in Bay 3, methodically wiping down the gleaming surfaces of the growing tanks. Even from behind, Neva was striking. Zira hadn't exaggerated about her mother's beauty. Her silver hair caught the artificial sunlight streaming through the growth chambers, creating an almost ethereal glow around her slender frame. She moved with fluid grace, each gesture economical and precise, like a dancer who had learned to conserve energy. "Excuse me," Marcus said softly, not wanting to startle her. "Neva Shalvis." She turned, and Marcus felt his breath catch. Zira's description hadn't done her justice. Neva's skin held the same silver-blue tone as her daughter's, but where Zira's was bright with youth, Neva's had a subtle luminescence that seemed to come from within. Her violet eyes were larger than human proportions, set in a face that was both alien and achingly beautiful. But it was the wariness in those eyes that made Marcus's chest tighten, the look of someone who had learned to expect disappointment. "Yes," she said, her voice carrying the musical quality Zira had described, though it was guarded now. "I'm sorry, do I know you? I'm Marcus Webb. I met your daughter a few nights ago." He saw her stiffen and quickly added, "She's fine. She wasn't in any trouble. She invited me to dinner." Neva's expression shifted from wariness to something approaching panic. "Oh, spirits of the void. I'm so sorry. Zira, sometimes she doesn't understand boundaries. Please, I'll speak with her. She won't bother you again." "She wasn't bothering me," Marcus said quickly. "Actually, I was hoping I could take her up on that invitation, if you're okay with it. I mean." Neva stared at him for a long moment, as if trying to decipher some hidden meaning in his words. "You want to have dinner with us, if that's all, right?" Zira mentioned something about Kethra soup. A ghost of a smile flickered across Neva's face before disappearing. "She's very proud of that recipe. It was her grandmother's." The smile faded entirely. "But I should warn you, our quarters are modest, and I'm not sure what Zira might have told you about our circumstances." "She told me you work hard to take care of her," Marcus said simply. "That's all I need to know." Something in his tone must have reached her, because Neva's rigid posture relaxed slightly. "She's all I have," she said quietly, "my whole world. She loves you very much, anyone can see that." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the only sounds the gentle hum of the hydroponics systems around them. Finally, Neva nodded. "Tomorrow evening, if you'd like, after the day shift ends. But please," she hesitated, "don't feel obligated." Zira is hopeful about things that aren't realistic. I don't want her to be disappointed. I'll be there, Marcus promised. The next evening, Marcus stood outside their quarters holding a small bouquet of actual flowers, a luxury on the station. But the merchant had assured him they were safe for Vilter physiology. His palms were sweating, and he felt like a teenager on his first date. Zira opened the door, her face lighting up like a small sun. Marcus, you came, Mama. He's here. The quarters were indeed modest, 2 small rooms with basic furniture and minimal decorations, but they were spotlessly clean, and small touches made them feel like home. Hand-drawn pictures on the walls, a collection of smooth stones ranged on a shelf, the rich aroma of something delicious cooking. Neva emerged from the tiny kitchen area, and Marcus was struck again by her beauty. She had changed from her work clothes into a simple but elegant dress in deep blue that complemented her silver skin. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, and she moved with that same graceful economy of motion. These are for you, Marcus said, offering the flowers. The vendor said they were safe for your people. Neva accepted them with surprise, bringing them to her face to breathe in their scent. They're beautiful. Thank you. It's been a long time since anyone brought me flowers. As they settled around the small table, Marcus found himself relaxing. The food was extraordinary. The Kethera soup was rich and complex, with flavors he couldn't identify but found addictive. Zira chattered throughout the meal, telling stories about her drawings and her dreams of seeing other worlds. She's incredibly bright, Marcus observed as Zira went to get her latest artwork to show him. To bright, sometimes, Neva said, but her tone was filled with love. She sees possibilities where others see only problems. Is that such a bad thing? Neva's expression grew distant. It can be when those possibilities are impossible. I worry about her expectations, about the disappointment she'll face when she realizes the universe isn't as kind as she believes it to be. Maybe the universe is exactly as kind as she believes it to be, Marcus said quietly. Maybe we're the ones who've forgotten how to see it. Neva looked at him with surprise, as if she hadn't expected such sentiment from a human stranger. You sound like someone who's been disappointed before. Haven't we all? She nodded slowly. Yes, I suppose we have. Later, as Zira curled up against her mother's side, fighting sleep, Marcus found himself reluctant to leave. The small quarters felt warmer and more alive than his own sterile apartment had ever been. This was nice, he said as he prepared to go. Thank you for letting me intrude on your evening. You weren't intruding, Neva said, walking him to the door. It was pleasant, having company. Maybe we could do it again sometime. She hesitated, then nodded. Zira would like that. She doesn't have many friends. What about what you'd like? Marcus asked gently. Neva's violet eyes met his, and for a moment, he saw past the careful walls she'd built around herself to the lonely woman underneath. I'd like that too, she whispered as Marcus walked back to his quarters. He realized that for the first time in years, he was looking forward to tomorrow. Behind him, in the modest quarters on level 7, a small alien girl smiled in her sleep, dreaming of the possibilities her innocent plea had set in motion. 2 weeks had passed since that first dinner, and Marcus found himself drawn to level 7 like a moth to flame. What had started as occasional visits had become a nightly routine. He would finish his shift, stop by the small market for fresh ingredients, and make his way to the modest quarters that had begun to feel more like home than his own sterile apartment. Tonight was different, though. As he approached their door, Marcus could hear raised voices from within. Neva's musical tone strained with stress, and a deeper, harsher voice he didn't recognize. You cannot continue to live like this, Neva, the stranger was saying in accented standard. It is beneath your station, beneath what you once were. What I once was is gone, Jorik, Neva replied, her voice tight with controlled anger. This is my life now, our life. Marcus hesitated at the door, uncertain whether to knock or retreat. The decision was made for him when the door slid open, revealing a tall, imposing Vaelter male with darker skin than Neva's and eyes like chips of obsidian. His clothing was expensive, his bearing aristocratic, and his expression one of barely contained disdain. And who might this be? Jorik asked, looking Marcus up and down. as if he were something unpleasant on his shoe. A friend, Neva said quickly, stepping partially in front of Marcus. Jorik, this is Marcus Webb. Marcus, this is Jorik Velthan. He's from my home world. The way she said it told Marcus everything he needed to know. This wasn't just someone from her past, this was someone who had hurt her, a human friend. Jorik said, his tone making it sound like a disease. How quaint, Papa Marcus. Zira's voice called from inside the quarters, and she came running to wrap her arms around his waist. The word Papa sent a jolt through Marcus's chest. When had she started calling him that? Jorik's eyes narrowed. Papa, Neva, surely you haven't. What? Marcus interrupted, his voice calm but carrying an edge of warning. Been kind to a child. Shared a meal with friends. I'm afraid I don't understand your objection. My objection, Jorik said, stepping closer, is that you are clearly taking advantage of a vulnerable woman and her child. Neva was once what? Marcus asked, stepping forward to meet him, despite being shorter than the Vailter. Something in his posture made Jorik take a step back. Enough, Neva said sharply. Jorik, you need to leave now. I'm not finished. Yes, you are. Marcus's voice was quiet, but there was steel in it. The lady asked you to leave. I suggest you do so. Jorik looked between Marcus and Neva, his expression shifting from anger to something like calculation. This isn't over, Neva. You cannot run from what you are forever. After he left, an uncomfortable silence settled over the small quarters. Zira clung to Marcus's side, her usual cheerfulness dimmed by the confrontation. Neva stood with her arms wrapped around herself, looking suddenly fragile. I'm sorry you had to see that, she said quietly. Who was he? Marcus asked, though he suspected he already knew. Neva was quiet for a long moment. Zira's father, she said finally. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. I see. No, Neva said quickly, seeing his expression. You don't see. Not really. She looked at Zira, who was still pressed against Marcus's side. Sweetheart, why don't you go work on your drawing, the one of the garden world? Zira nodded and reluctantly let go of Marcus, disappearing into the sleeping alcove. Only then did Neva speak again. He's not her father by choice, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. On my home world, there are arrangements, political, marriages. I was promised to him when I was barely older than Zira is now. Marcus felt his hands clench into fists. Arranged marriage. It was supposed to be a good match. His family was powerful, influential. My parents thought it would secure my future. Neva's laugh was bitter. I was so young, so naive. I thought I could make it work, that I could learn to love him. But you couldn't. He made that impossible. He was cruel, controlling. He wanted a trophy wife, not a partner. And when I couldn't give him the perfect, obedient spouse he expected, she touched her cheek unconsciously, and Marcus saw the ghost of old pain in her eyes. He hurt you. When I became pregnant with Zira, I thought things might change, but he was furious. He said the child would be weak, that I had contaminated his bloodline by not being strong enough to bear him a son. Neva's voice grew stronger, anger replacing the pain. That's when I knew I had to leave. So you ran. I took nothing but the clothes on my back and the child in my womb. I've been running ever since. She looked at Marcus with those large violet eyes. That's why he's here. He's found us again. Marcus moved to her then, slowly, carefully, as if approaching a wounded animal. When he reached out to touch her face, she flinched but didn't pull away. You're not running anymore, he said softly. You're home. This isn't my home, Neva whispered. I'm just hiding here. Then let's make it your home, Marcus said. Let's make it our home. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with possibility and promise. Neva stared at him, tears forming in her eyes. You don't understand what you're offering, she said. I'm not whole anymore. I'm broken. Then we'll be broken together, Marcus replied, his thumb gently wiping away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. We'll figure out how to heal. For the first time since he'd known her, Neva let herself truly lean into his touch. Her eyes closed, and she breathed in deeply, as if drawing strength from his presence. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. I don't know how to let someone close again. We'll learn together, Marcus said, and meant it. From the sleeping alcove came Zira's small voice. Does this mean Papa Marcus is staying? Marcus looked at Neva, waiting for her answer. After a long moment, she nodded. Yes, sweetheart, she called back. Papa Marcus is staying. The morning brought complications in the form of Station Chief Brennan's summons. Marcus sat across from the gruff administrator's desk, watching the older man review a digital file with increasing disapproval. So let me get this straight, Webb, Brennan said, his Irish accent thickening with irritation. You've been cohabitating with an unregistered alien and her child for the past month? They're not unregistered, Marcus replied carefully. Neva has temporary residence status, and Zira is listed as her dependent. Temporary being the operative word, Brennan said, tapping his screen. Their permits expire in 6 weeks, and frankly, there's not much reason to renew them. The mother's employment is menial, and they have no family connections or permanent sponsor. Marcus felt his chest tighten. What are you saying? I'm saying that unless something changes dramatically, they'll be relocated to a refugee settlement. Not here, not on any decent world. One of the Outer Rim facilities. Brennan's expression softened slightly. Look, Webb, I like you. You're a good worker. Keep to yourself. Don't cause trouble. But getting involved with transients, it's not smart. They're not transients, Marcus said, his voice hardening. They're my family. Brennan raised an eyebrow. Your family, that's a hell of a development. You planning to make that official? The question hung in the air, and Marcus realized he'd been avoiding thinking about it. What was he planning? Where was this relationship heading? I don't know, he said honestly. But I won't let them be shipped off to some refugee camp. Then you better figure it out fast, Brennan said, because that's exactly what's going to happen unless you can give me a compelling reason to extend their stay. Marcus left the administrative office with his mind racing. 6 weeks. They had 6 weeks to figure out a solution, or he would lose the family he'd only just found. When he returned to their quarters that evening, he found Neva in the small kitchen area, preparing dinner with mechanical precision. Her movements were too controlled, too careful, and he could see the tension in her shoulders. Rough day, he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. She leaned back against him, and he felt some of the stiffness leave her body. Jorik came by the hydroponics bay today, she said quietly. He's not giving up. What did he want? The same thing he's always wanted, control. Neva turned in his arms, her violet eyes troubled. He's filed a paternity claim with the Vailter embassy. He wants to take Zira back to our home world. Marcus felt ice form in his veins. Can he do that? Under Vailter law, yes, unless. She hesitated, then shook her head. It doesn't matter. The options aren't realistic. Tell me anyway. Unless I have a mate bond with someone who can formally adopt her. But that would require. She looked away. It would require a permanent commitment. Marriage by human standards. The words settled between them like a challenge. Marcus realized this was the moment he'd been avoiding. The decision that would define not just his future, but theirs as well. Would that be so terrible? He asked quietly. Neva's eyes snapped back to his. Marcus, you don't understand what you're suggesting. A mate bond isn't just a legal contract. It's a spiritual connection. In Vailter culture, it's literally binding two souls together. I know what I'm suggesting, Marcus said, his voice steady despite the racing of his heart. I'm suggesting that we stop pretending this is temporary, that we admit we're building something real here. But we barely know each other, Neva protested. We've been together for what? 2 months. You can't make a decision like this based on what? The fact that I haven't been truly happy in years until I met you and Zira. The fact that I can't imagine my life without you both in it. Marcus cupped her face in his hands. I've spent most of my adult life avoiding connections, avoiding risk. But this isn't a risk anymore. This is the closest thing to certainty I've ever felt. Tears formed in Neva's eyes. You don't know what you're asking. The mate bond ceremony. It's not just symbolic. There are physical aspects, spiritual ones. It would change you. Change us both. Then we'll change together, Marcus said, echoing his words from weeks earlier. We'll figure it out. Papa Marcus, Mama. Zira's voice came from the sleeping alcove, tentative and worried. Are you fighting? No, sweetheart, Neva called back, wiping her eyes. We're just talking about grown-up things. Zira appeared in the doorway, her stuffed animal clutched to her chest. Are you talking about the mean man who wants to take me away? Marcus and Neva exchanged glances. They'd tried to shield her from the worst of Jorek's threats, but children heard more than adults realized. Nobody's taking you anywhere, Marcus said firmly, kneeling down to her level. I promise. But what if he tries? Zira asked, her voice small and frightened. Marcus looked up at Neva, seeing his own determination reflected in her eyes. Then, we'll stop him, he said. All of us, together. Later that night, after Zira had fallen asleep, Marcus and Neva sat close together on their small sofa, talking in whispers about the future. The ceremony would have to be performed by a Vaelter elder, Neva explained. There's one on the station, in the diplomatic quarter, Elder Thane. He's traditional, but fair. What exactly does the ceremony involve? It's beautiful, actually. We would share breath, share blood, share intention. The elder would bind our life forces together, creating a connection that transcends the physical. She looked at him seriously. It's not reversible, Marcus. Once we're bonded, we're bonded. For life. Good, Marcus said simply. I don't want it to be reversible. Neva studied his face in the dim light. You're really sure about this? I've never been more sure of anything in my life, he replied. The question is, are you? She was quiet for a long moment, then smiled the first truly radiant smile he'd seen from her. Yes, she whispered. I am, as they held each other in the darkness. Both of them knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges. Jorek wouldn't give up easily, and the station bureaucracy would have its own obstacles. But for the first time, since they'd met, the future felt not like something to be endured, but something to be embraced. In 3 days, they would stand before Elder Thane and bind their souls together. In 3 days, they would become a family not just in heart, but in law and spirit. In 3 days, their real journey would begin. The ceremony chamber in the diplomatic quarter was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. Crystalline formations jutted from the walls, each one pulsing with a soft, rhythmic light that seemed to match the beating of his heart. The air itself felt charged, as if the very atmosphere was alive with possibility. Elder Thane stood at the center of the room, his ancient face lined with the wisdom of centuries. His silver hair fell to his shoulders, and his deep violet eyes held depths that spoke of countless ceremonies, countless lives joined in the sacred bond of his people. You understand, the elder said, his voice carrying the weight of ritual, that what we do here today cannot be undone. The mate bond is eternal, transcending even death itself. Marcus felt Neva's hand tremble in his. They stood facing each other, dressed in the ceremonial robes that Thane had provided, simple white garments that seemed to glow. In the crystal light, Zira sat nearby, her eyes wide with wonder and excitement. We understand, Marcus said, his voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. Then let us begin. Elder Thane raised his hands, and the crystals around them began to hum with increasing intensity. Neva Shalvis, daughter of the void-touched line, do you offer your spirit freely to this union? I do, Neva whispered, her voice carrying across the chamber like music. Marcus Webb, child of distant Earth, do you offer your spirit freely to this union? I do, Marcus replied, feeling the words resonate in his chest. Then join hands and share breath, that your life forces may intertwine. Marcus and Neva stepped closer, their hands clasping. He could feel her pulse racing, matching his own. They leaned toward each other, their foreheads touching, sharing the same air. The same moment of transformation, Elder Thane began to chant in the old tongue, his voice weaving through the crystal song. The light around them intensified, and Marcus felt something shift inside him, a warmth spreading through his chest, a sense of connection that went deeper than anything he'd ever experienced. Share blood, that your essence may become one. Thane intoned. Using a ceremonial blade, the elder made small cuts on their palms. As their blood mingled, dropping onto the crystalline floor, Marcus felt the world explode into new sensation. He could feel Neva's heartbeat as if it were his own, could sense her emotions flowing through him like a river of light. Share intention, that your futures may be as one path. I choose you, Marcus said, the words coming from somewhere deeper than thought. In joy and sorrow, in plenty and want, in all the days to come, I choose you, Neva replied, tears streaming down her face. My heart, my soul, my eternal companion. The crystals sang louder, and light erupted around them. Marcus felt himself dissolving and reforming, his consciousness expanding to encompass not just himself but Neva as well. He could feel her love, her hope, her fears, her dreams, all of it flooding through him until he couldn't tell where he ended and she began. Then, gradually, the light faded, the crystals returned to their gentle pulsing. Elder Thane smiled, his ancient face radiant with joy. It is done, he said. You are bonded, now and always. Marcus looked at Neva, and she was transformed. Her silver skin seemed to glow from within, and her eyes held depths he'd never seen before. But more than that, he could feel her presence in his mind, warm and welcoming and utterly complete. Papa Marcus, Mama, Zira ran to them, wrapping her arms around both of their legs. You're glowing, and they were, Marcus realized. A faint luminescence surrounded them both, the visible sign of their bond. It would fade with time, but the connection it represented would last forever. But their celebration was interrupted by the sound of footsteps in the corridor outside. Heavy boots, moving with military precision. Elder Thane's expression darkened. It seems we have uninvited guests, he said grimly. The chamber doors burst open, and Jorek strode in, flanked by two large Vaelter in what looked like enforcement uniforms. His face was a mask of fury as he took in the scene before him. You're too late, he snarled. The ceremony is already complete. I can see that, Jorek said, his voice dripping with disdain. But it changes nothing. The child is still mine by blood, and I will have her. The child, Elder Thane said, his voice carrying absolute authority, is now the adopted daughter of a mated pair. Your claim is void. My claim is supported by the Vaelter High Council. Jorek replied, producing a data pad. They have ruled that the child must be returned to her home world for proper education and upbringing. Marcus felt rage surge through him, not just his own, but Neva's as well, amplified by their bond. You'll have to go through me first, he said, stepping protectively in front of Zira. A human? Jorek laughed. What can one human do against the might of? He never finished the sentence. The chamber doors opened again, and Station Chief Brennan entered, followed by a woman Marcus didn't recognize, tall, authoritative, wearing the uniform of the Galactic Diplomatic Corps. I'm Captain Rhodes, the woman announced, and I'm here to inform you, Jorek Velthan, that your authority on this station is revoked. The Galactic Council has reviewed your case and found your claims to be without merit. Jorek's face went pale. That's impossible. The High Council has been overruled, Rhodes said smoothly. It seems your methods of obtaining custody orders involved bribery and intimidation. The Council takes a dim view of such tactics. Furthermore, Brennan added, I'm pleased to inform the Webb family that their residence permits have been approved for permanent extension. Seems the station could use more skilled technicians and engineers. Marcus felt Neva's joy surge through their bond, mixing with his own relief and elation. They were safe, they were together, they were home. Jorek looked around the chamber, his support crumbling. Without another word, he turned and stalked out, his enforcers following. Well, Elder Thane said, his eyes twinkling with amusement, that was dramatic, but such things often are when hearts are involved. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the observation deck where he'd first met Zira, watching ships come and go in the vast starfield beyond. But now he wasn't alone. Neva stood beside him, her hand in his, their bond humming with contentment. And Zira sat nearby, working on a new drawing, this one showing their expanded family, including the baby that would arrive in a few months. Are you happy? Neva asked. Echoing Zira's question from that first night, Marcus squeezed her hand, feeling her love flow through their connection. More than I ever dreamed possible, he replied. And as the stars wheeled overhead, the small family that had been brought together by a child's innocent plea looked toward a future filled with infinite possibility.